Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm genuinely excited today because we're really getting into something fascinating from South Indian cinema. We're doing a deep dive on, well, one of the huge releases of 2025, Coolie, directed by Lokesh Kanagaraj and, yeah, starring the legend Rajnikanth. Now, this is kind of interesting because whether you follow Indian cinema closely or you're just curious, well, getting a clear picture can be tricky. A lot of the reviews are obviously in different languages, scattered all over. So our mission basically was to cut through that noise. We've pulled together the main takeaways, the core insights from loads of sources, just to give you a really clear sense of how Cooley was received critically. And let me tell you, it's quite a mix, some definite surprises in there.
Yeah, what's really illuminating, I think, is digging into why the opinions are so varied, especially with a star like Rajinikanth. The anticipation is always massive. Sometimes that hype itself shapes how people initially react, maybe even more than the film itself. So, yeah, going beyond just a star rating helps us understand what really worked for critics and maybe where it stumbled a bit. It helps us grasp the film's real contribution.
That's a great point. And our sources, when you pull them all together, they definitely show that. It's pretty clear from, mainstream reviews analyses that Cooley landed in that mixed reviews category. So not a total smash hit across the board, but definitely not a complete disaster either, which, like you said, makes digging into the details way more interesting.
Exactly. And there's some clear positives that kept coming up, things critics consistently praised. For instance, almost everyone agreed on the performances, especially Rajinikanth himself, his presence, that unique style he has, the sheer power he brings. That really seemed to impress reviewers.
Oh, yeah, you see that mentioned everywhere. Like,
Ah,
the Times of India gave it 3.5 out of 5. And they actually called it one of Rajinikanth's best recent films, which is huge. They talked about his enthusiasm, the character's morality, and that mass appeal. And mass appeal in this context, for anyone maybe less familiar, it's more than just being popular, right? It's about embodying this larger-than-life thing, connecting with audiences through dialogues, action, just presence.
precisely. It's that almost mythic quality he has on screen. And it wasn't just him carrying it, apparently. Anirudh Ravichandra's music was another big one, consistently praised for its impact. Reviewers often said the score really, amped up the action scenes, the big moments, created real excitement. And the action itself, the choreography, the cinematography, those got good mentions too, visually engaging. Plus, there was appreciation for the first half story texture, some humor woven in.
Right. I saw Gulti.com mention that too. They said Rajinikanth's performance, plus Nagarjuna and Subin Shahir, really lifted the film. They specifically flagged the plot twists, the action, and that driving music as major strengths. So it sounds like the first part of the movie and these specific elements, acting, music, visuals, they really hit the mark.
That's a good way to put it. And something almost universally liked was the pacing, specifically of the first half. Seems like it started with real energy, built momentum well. Audiences were hooked early on, so a strong foundation was definitely laid. And interestingly, some supporting actors got specific shout-outs too. Shruti Hassan as Preeti and Subin Shahir as Dayalan, often mentioned as being quite impactful. Critics felt they added real depth, weren't just, background characters, integral, especially early on.
Yeah, those specific names kept popping up. GreatOnTorcha.com, I think, said while Rajini's magic was there, the characters that really grabbed attention included Rachita Ram, Subin Shahir, and Shruti Hassan, which really underlines how strong those supporting roles must have been to stand out alongside him. So just a good ensemble, at least for that first part of the film.
It does. But what's fascinating then is how the criticisms also follow really clear, recurring themes. And they almost all seem to focus on the second half of the film. This is where many critics felt that strong initial pace just disappeared. Words like slow, stagnant, even burdened started appearing in the reviews.
Yeah, that was super consistent across the board. Summary after summary mentioned the second half dragging, feeling slow, losing its way. Some even said the narrative style felt off, like it changed somehow. That initial energy, that rhythm, sounds like it just couldn't hold up. What does that mean, though, burdened by its own weight? How does a film get like that?
Well, it's a common issue, actually. Often it happens when a film maybe relies too heavily on big moments or set pieces later on, but forgets the connective tissue. Or it tries to juggle too many subplots, too many characters, and the main story kind of gets lost. So critics are basically saying, look, the individual parts, the stars, the action, the music, they were there, but the way they were put together in that second half, the overall structure, it just wasn't cohesive. It felt like, wandering between flashy scenes instead of moving the story forward purposefully.
Okay, makes sense. And it wasn't just the general pacing, right? Guilty.com specifically hit the pre-climax and climax, so they felt forced
Hmm.
and slow to get going initially. That's pretty critical. The pre-climax, that build-up, if that feels forced or slow, it kind of ruins the payoff, doesn't it? It makes the ending feel, I don't know, unearned or something.
Exactly. It undermines the whole resolution. And this brings up questions about other creative choices, too, like the cameos. Coolie apparently had some big ones. Aamir Khan, Upendra, major names. Now, usually cameos like that in Indian cinema are meant to generate buzz, add some surprise star power. But here, the feedback was largely underwhelming. Critics called them noteworthy, but ultimately useless, or just, well, not adding much value. Felt more like walk-ons than actual contributions.
Wow, so instead of being cool additions, they actually became a negative point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not great. GreatAuntToRead.com was pretty direct. Noteworthy but not useful. Ouch. It's like you said, inviting a superstar to the party, but they don't actually do anything. Sounds like the star power just didn't translate into story impact. A real missed opportunity then.
That's a perfect way to describe it. And you see Hindustan Times kind of echoing this. They gave it 2.5 stars, called it entertaining but uneven. And they basically said it was Rajinikanth's performance and Andhra's music that mostly saved the film, which implies, other things, maybe including those cameos, weren't really helping. Even more pointedly, Cinema Express suggested that Deva, Rajinikanth's main character, didn't even get his due value.
Whoa, okay. Saying the main character in a Rajinikanth film didn't get his due value. For a movie that's pretty much designed to showcase him a Rajinikanth vehicle, that's a really strong criticism. It kind of crystallizes the whole issue, doesn't it? Like Rajinikanth himself, amazing music, great. Some supporting actors, strong. But the overall story, especially how it wrapped up, just didn't quite hold together for many critics. All the right ingredients, maybe, but the final dish was inconsistent.
That's exactly the tension here. So if we tie this all together, the big picture for Coolie is, it's absolutely a Rajinikanth showcase. His charisma, his style, his presence, they're front and center and undeniably powerful. But the narrative itself, it's a story of two halves, really. A strong, energetic, well-liked first half, and then a second half that struggled, became inconsistent, strained, where even big guest stars couldn't quite fix the underlying narrative issues. A sense of potential not fully realized. So just to recap the core findings for everyone listening, Coolie is really marked by these big contrasts. On the plus side, huge praise, almost universal, for Rajinikanth. His power, his style, his performance just commanded the screen. Anirudh Ravichandra's music, another massive positive, added energy, emotion, really boosted the film. And strong support from Shruti Hassan as Priyati and Subin Shahir as Dayalan. They added real substance. But then on the other side, you have these very consistent criticisms. The second half's pacing. Too slow, stagnant, lost momentum. That came up again and again. The pre-climax and climax felt forced, maybe lacking that real emotional punch.
And those big cameos, Aamir Khan and Upendra seen as noteworthy, sure, but ultimately not adding much to the actual story. Useless was the word used. So, connecting it all, it paints Coolie as this powerful vehicle for its star, no doubt, but the story holding it up. It's a mixed bag. Brilliant flashes mixed with significant stumbles. Whether you've seen it or you're planning to, or maybe you're just tracking Indian cinema, understanding these points really adds context.
So what does this all mean for us watching these huge movies? This deep dive, it really gets you thinking, doesn't it, about that balancing act in films packed with stars, especially with a legend like Rajinikanth leading and then other big names popping in. It raises that question. How much does each star, each character, really need to contribute, story-wise, for the whole thing to work, to feel cohesive? Is sheer charisma enough to carry a film for 2+ hours? Or, does the narrative eventually have to pull its own weight, make sure every element truly serves the story? It's definitely something interesting to keep in mind next time you watch one of these massive multi-star productions. Is it a true ensemble or just a collection of star moments? Anyway, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us.